Welcome to Reddit Stories, where OP's sister demands she lies about her pregnancy. Am I the jerk for refusing to lie about my sister's pregnancy? I'm 29 female, and my sister Ashley is 26. Our relationship has always landed somewhere between close and complicated. We grew up sharing everything, our room, our clothes, our teen drama, but as adults, we've drifted a bit. We still talk regularly and we see each other at family stuff, but we're not as tight as we used to be. Still, I always felt like we had an unspoken agreement that we could always be honest with each other, even when it was uncomfortable. A few weeks ago, Ashley asked if she could come over after work. When she showed up, she looked off. Not just tired, but like she had been sitting with something heavy all day. She sat at my kitchen table and said she needed to tell me something before anyone else heard it. After a long pause, she told me she was pregnant. She said it quietly, like she didn't want the word to echo. I congratulated her and asked how she was feeling, and she just shrugged, said she didn't really know yet. She looked more anxious than excited. Then she told me why. She had been seeing two guys on and off, and she wasn't sure who the father was. I knew her dating life had been a little chaotic since her last breakup, but hearing that made the whole situation feel heavier. She asked me not to tell anyone. I told her, of course, that was her news to share. Then she started talking about how nervous she was about telling our parents. She said they would judge her, and worse, they had judged the guy that she didn't want them to think was involved. That's when she dropped what she really wanted. She asked me to help her present a cleaner version of the story. She wanted me to back her up when she told everyone she'd been in a committed relationship with one of the guys and that he was happy about the baby. She made it sound like no big deal, just a little smoothing over until she figured the rest out. At first, I tried to steer her away from the idea gently. I said lying would only make things worse if the truth came out. She brushed that off and said the truth didn't need to come out if everyone just stuck to the same version. Then she told me I was the person she trusted the most and that she needed me to do this favor for her. I could tell that she was scared and I felt for her, but she wasn't just asking for support. She was asking me to help rewrite the story for everyone else. When I told her I wasn't comfortable with that, she pushed harder. Said things like, "You're my sister. You're supposed to have my back." Her tone shifted from nervous to frustrated fast. I stayed calm and I repeated that I didn't want to lie. She stood up, started pacing around my kitchen, saying I had no idea how hard this was for her. I told her I understood, but it didn't change what she was asking of me. When she realized I wasn't budging, she started crying. The kind of crying that's half sadness, half anger. She said I was being selfish, that I was making things harder than they had to be, and that she'd remember I refused to help her when she needed me the most. I felt awful, not because I thought I was wrong, but because I could see how lost she was. Even then, I couldn't say yes. The next morning, I woke up to a bunch of texts from her, each one more emotional than the last. She asked if I had changed my mind, said everything was going to fall apart if I didn't step in. I told her again that I wasn't going to lie. After that, she went silent. Later that day, my mom called. Her voice was tight, like she was trying not to lose it. She asked why I said such hurtful things to Ashley. I was completely confused. Then she said Ashley had told her that I accused her of ruining her life and that I refused to support her because I was jealous. It felt like the entire conversation had been turned upside down. I tried explaining what actually happened, but my mom didn't sound convinced. A little while after that, my dad called. He said I needed to apologize before things got worse, that Ashley was struggling and I was only adding to the stress. I told him I hadn't done anything except refuse to lie. He said I was being dramatic and making it all about myself. It was clear they believed her. Over the next few days, everything got more tense. Ashley barely spoke to me. My parents acted like I had done something unforgivable. I tried giving everyone space, but it felt like they were all waiting for me to come crawling back with some kind of an apology. The problem is, I don't know how to apologize for something I didn't do. I didn't out her. I didn't judge her. I just said no to pretending something was true when it wasn't. I'd been going back and forth in my head trying to figure out if I handled this the wrong way. I wanted to support her, but I just couldn't pretend I was okay with lying to everyone, especially when it was bound to spiral later. Agreeing would have only dragged me into something that wasn't mine to fix. So here I am asking strangers online, did I completely mishandle this? Or was I right to draw a line and refuse to be part of something that didn't feel right? Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You weren't being selfish. You were being the only adult in the room. Your sister wanted a co-writer for her fiction, and when you said no, she rewrote you as the villain instead. It's not your job to manage her fear or clean up her mess. If she can't handle the truth now, how's she going to handle raising a kid? Not the jerk. What you're dealing with sounds a lot like emotional filtering, which happens when someone is so overwhelmed internally that they start hearing things through the lens of their own stress, fear, or shame. It's why your sister walked away from a calm, I can't lie for you, and somehow heard, you've ruined your life. When someone has that much inner chaos, it twists everything on the outside too. That's why keeping your own clarity intact is so important. If you don't, you end up reacting to things that were never actually said, and that's how relationships break down. You made the right call by staying grounded in the truth, even when she couldn't. So she asked for a lie, got a no, and decided to rewrite the entire conversation? Classic. When the truth doesn't fit the script, some people just invent a whole new episode. And cast themselves as the victim, of course. Too bad the plot hole is called reality. Entitled siblings are convinced mom has a secret stash of money. My mom is almost 80. She's sharp, independent, and still works in her garden every morning. She's lived in the same house for 35 years, and it's her pride and joy. My stepdad passed away a few years ago, and since then she's been on her own. That should have been the end of it, but somehow my brother and sister decided that my mom must be hiding a secret pile of cash from us. It started small. They'd visit her and spend the whole time acting suspicious. One of them would chat her up in the kitchen while the other would use the bathroom and wander around. At first, Mom thought they were just being nosy, but when she caught my sister rifling through her bedroom drawers, the truth came out. They were convinced she had money hidden in the house. The idea came from their own imagination. They thought when my stepdad died, he must have left her something big like cash, insurance, gold bars, who knows. But he didn't. He didn't even raise us. They married after we were all adults. The house was paid off only because I'd organized a GoFundMe to help her after his passing. My siblings were kept out of it because Mom didn't trust them not to demand a share. That GoFundMe was what saved her. She was about to lose her home because of a reverse mortgage. The title company was circling like a hawk. Family and friends chipped in. Even one of Mom's coworkers donated 10 grand. But my siblings never knew anything about it. Now, years later, all they see is that she somehow managed to pay off the house. They've decided the only explanation is that she's secretly loaded. They've been relentless ever since. They call her and demand she be fair and help out the family. They want her to buy them houses or give them acres of land from her property. They talk like her home is already theirs to split. The worst part is that Mom still takes their calls. She loves all of her kids, no matter how badly they treat her. I've begged her to block their numbers, but she won't. She says she doesn't want to lose contact with the grandkids. Every time she tells them she doesn't have money, they accuse me of hiding it for her. They even threatened to take me to court for elder financial mistreatment. I told them I'd welcome it. I handle her bills and I keep records of every cent, all in a spreadsheet that they'll never see. They're the kind of people who can't stand seeing someone else stable when they're struggling. Both of them are always broke, always blaming someone else. My brother's marriage is falling apart. My sister's barely scraping by, and somehow that means Mom owes them. They've snooped through her house, yelled at her over the phone, and told her she's selfish for wanting to stay in her own home. I finally told them, "You're lucky she still answers your calls at all." They didn't like that. What they don't know is that Mom's already made her will. She left the house and 5 acres to an animal rescue group she's worked with for years. I'm the executor, and she's asked me to keep it quiet. If they ever found out, it'd probably harass the charity. The irony is, Mom isn't rich. She gets less than $4,000 a month in retirement income. I help her pay her water bill and cell phone. The land is worth something, sure, but that's only because of where it sits. It's out in Alaska, surrounded by untouched forest. She loves her life there. She has her garden, her animals, and peace. But lately, my brother and sister have been pushing harder. She called me one night after working in her greenhouse, tired and shaky. They had both been calling again, asking for their share. I could hear in her voice that it was wearing her down. She's stubborn though. That farm girl in her still fights back. She told me she'd rather live poor and honest than see her land handed to people who only see dollar signs. I know you said she doesn't want to cut contact, but you might need to step in soon. Greedy siblings don't just stop, they escalate. Change her locks, keep cameras up, and make sure her lawyer has every detail. These people will tear the house apart looking for cash when she's gone. Your mom sounds amazing. She reminds me of my grandma who left her farm to a bird sanctuary. Your siblings are going to explode when they find out. Just make sure the will is bulletproof because they'll try to contest it. Add a clause that gives them each $1 so they can't claim they were forgotten. Update. A few months later, everything changed. Mom got sick. Out of nowhere, she started having severe vertigo and swelling, and her heart went into AFib. The doctors think it's related to her pacemaker, but they're still checking her medication. She spent 3 days in the hospital, and I stayed by her side the entire time. While she was there, something else happened that shocked both of us. The animal rescue she had planned to leave the property to turned its back on her. She had been caring for several animals that were dropped off by the rescue, and when she got sick, they refused to step in and help. They told her they had lost funding and that fosters were on their own now. That was the final straw. She told me right then and there that she wasn't leaving the land to them anymore. She decided to rewrite her will completely. The house and property will now be sold after she passes, and the money divided equally among her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She told me not to tell the others, not even my siblings. Let them keep believing the rescue is still in her will. She said it with a little grin, like she had just played the best trick of her life. She's still recovering, still tough as nails. Even while she's sick, she's out in her greenhouse with her animals, watering plants and feeding the dogs. She has 3 husky pit mixes, a dozen cats, and more stray critters than I can count. They keep her busy, and in her words, give her a reason to wake up every morning. Her finances are tight, but she still gives to her church and sets aside a little for the vet. Her faith and her animals are what keep her going. I don't know what's going to happen when she's gone. My siblings will lose their minds when they realize there's no hidden money and no inheritance waiting for them. But until then, I'm following her wishes to the letter. You're doing everything right. Just be prepared. They will absolutely accuse you of forging that will when the time comes. Have her doctor document that she's of sound mind now. That paperwork will save you in court later. You'll never convince greedy people that they're wrong. They don't want truth, they want validation. Keep everything documented, every receipt, every message. That's your shield when the fighting starts. It's wild how some people convince themselves they're owed something that was never even theirs. Especially when the person they're chasing is their own 80-year-old mother. They'll tear the whole family apart chasing money that isn't even real. Meanwhile, mom's out there feeding stray cats and giving to charity. And when it's all over, the grandkids will get the inheritance, and the greedy ones will be left with nothing but their own guilt. Feels about right. Seatmate on a flight complained that I started eating my special meal before theirs arrived. I was on a long-haul flight from the US to Asia last month. It was one of those 14-hour stretches where the air smells like reheated pasta and half the cabin's already asleep before takeoff. I had pre-ordered a vegetarian meal, which I always do because it saves me the trouble of trying to explain to flight attendants mid-air that I don't eat meat. Everything was going fine. I had a window seat, some podcasts downloaded, and a quiet plan to fall asleep after dinner. My seatmate was a middle-aged passenger who looked harmless enough. She wore a neat shirt, headphones, and we had a small talk about turbulence. We didn't chat much, which was ideal. A couple of hours in, the cabin lights dimmed and the clinking of meal carts started from the back. If you fly often, you know the drill. Special meals always come first. The flight attendant brought mine. I had ordered vegetarian curry with rice and a small salad, and the smell of my warm food filled our row. So I unwrapped everything, popped open the lid, and started eating. I didn't even think twice about it. Airplane meals aren't fine dining, they're survival fuel. A few minutes later, I noticed my seatmate giving me a side eye. At first, I thought maybe I was elbowing the shared armrest or being too fast with my fork. Then they sighed loudly and muttered something about manners. I paused and looked over, thinking maybe they needed help with something. That's when they told me, very pointedly, that it was rude of me to start eating before everyone else in our row got their food. Apparently, it was basic courtesy to wait until everyone was served. For a second, I thought they were joking. We weren't sitting around a dinner table. We were two strangers in the middle of economy class surrounded by snoring passengers and baby cries. They went on about how I was setting a bad example and ruining the sense of community in our row. I couldn't tell if I was being pranked. I just stared at them with the fork halfway to my mouth. Then I told them I had a special meal that usually comes early and it would get cold if I waited. They rolled their eyes so hard, I thought they might fall asleep mid-rotation. When their meal finally came, about 20 minutes later, they spent the first few bites muttering under their breath something about selfish people and no respect anymore. Meanwhile, I finished my curry, put on my headphones, and turned up the volume just enough to drown out the passive-aggressive chewing beside me. Half an hour later, the same person hit the call button to complain about the uneven meal timing, as if I personally controlled airline logistics. The attendant just smiled politely and explained the standard meal order for special requests. My seatmate gave me another death glare like I had orchestrated the entire catering schedule to spite them personally. At some point, I stopped feeling irritated and started feeling amused. It's wild how some people can turn the smallest things into a moral issue. It's an airplane, not a family reunion. We're strangers hurtling through the sky at 500 miles an hour. Eat your food while it's warm. When the plane landed hours later, my seatmate refused to make eye contact as we waited to disembark. I smiled, thanked the crew, and walked off into the terminal feeling strangely victorious. If that's rudeness, then I'll take it over cold curry any day. If I were in your shoes, I'd eat the meal while it was hot too. If it was my family next to me, they would tell me to eat while my meal is warm too. If my food's here and yours isn't, that's not my problem. Planes aren't dinner parties. This took me back. There was a time when I always got served last if I was out with a group of friends. Everyone waited politely, but I'd always tell them to start before me. Nobody deserves cold food for the sake of etiquette. So this passenger actually got mad because someone started eating next to them. Right, like it's a dinner party in the sky and we're all waiting for the host to make a toast. Lady insisted I help her find the good bread at a farmer's market. This happened last Saturday at the farmer's market near my apartment in Austin. It was one of those perfect mornings. It was sunny and music was playing from a busker nearby. People were walking dogs that cost more than my car. I was wearing jeans, sneakers, and an old gray t-shirt from a 5K I did years ago. I had 2 reusable grocery bags full of vegetables and a cup of coffee from a local cafe. Basically, I looked like every other customer there. I stopped at one of my favorite stalls, this older guy who grows tomatoes that actually taste like tomatoes, and I was standing in front of his table comparing the heirlooms when this woman came up beside me. She looked around once, spotted me, and said, "Excuse me, where do you keep the good bread? Sourdough." At first, I thought she was talking to the vendor or maybe someone behind me, but no, she was staring straight at me. I told her as politely as I could that I didn't, and I went back to picking tomatoes. That apparently offended her on a spiritual level. Then she started insisting I did work there, pointing out that I was standing behind the table. Except I wasn't. I was literally on the same side as her, juggling my bags and coffee like any normal person trying not to drop their kale. I said, "Not really, I'm just shopping," and I held up the bags for proof. Then she hit me with, "I've been coming to this market for 12 years, and I've never been treated so rudely by staff. Get me your manager." At this point, I think my soul left my body. I didn't even know what to say. The actual vendor, bless him, was helping another customer. So I told her again, "Ma'am, I live 4 blocks away. I don't work here. I'm literally holding groceries." That was all she needed to launch into a speech about young people these days and how no one wants to work anymore and how she was going to report me. To who? The city? The Farmers Guild? I don't even know. By this point, other shoppers were starting to notice. Eventually, the vendor finished with his customer and came over. The woman immediately turned on him, complaining about the employee, me, who was refusing to help her. The poor man looked from her to me, my coffee, my shopping bags, and my face probably frozen somewhere between confusion and despair. He finally told her I didn't work for him, said he ran the stall alone. You could actually see her brain trying to process it, then her face went bright red. Without a single apology, she clutched her purse and practically speed-walked away. She disappeared into the crowd like she was late for a meeting with her own shame, pretending nothing had happened. The vendor turned to me, laughed, and handed me a bunch of basil. I apologized, then said, "Guess you work here now." I thanked him, took the basil, and went home to make pesto. On the walk back, I started replaying everything in my head. I couldn't figure out how anyone could confuse a random customer, holding groceries, no uniform, sipping coffee, for an employee. But maybe that's the secret ingredient in Karen logic. The only correct response in that situation is to look at her with genuine concern or pity and ask if her caretaker knows she's out here unsupervised. Works every time. Watching anger turn into confusion, then back to anger is its own reward. Some people are just wired for conflict. They walk through the world convinced they're right about everything, and when reality doesn't match that, they take it as a personal insult. It's like they can't stand being corrected, even when it's about something as harmless as who sells tomatoes. They treat "you're mistaken" like it's a threat to national security. I've been in retail for 30 years. This kind of thing happens more than you'd think. People can't handle being told no anymore. The amount of customers who think they can report someone at an independent stall never fails to amaze me. Report us to who? Mother Nature? So this lady really saw someone holding coffee and groceries and decided that they worked there anyway? Yeah, because nothing screams market employee like a random person juggling shopping bags and a coffee cup. Karen demands I spend $2,000 on a necklace for her best friend. My wife has known her best friend since middle school. Her friend is a lawyer and her family is quite well off. She makes a lot and is pretty generous with it. My wife has had a few things paid for by her. Specifically, she's covered my wife's portion of her bachelorette trip. The other friends didn't make much, so she covered it. She's also paid for a portion of my wife's rent twice, and she normally pays the bills if she and my wife go out for food. This friend is now marrying a doctor, and I don't think they have any trouble with paying for anything they want. My wife is a stay-at-home mom, and I'm a mechanic. I brought home a bonus of $3,000, and when I told my wife, she immediately started talking about getting her friend a really expensive necklace from this brand she knows her friend really wants. She showed me, and the cheapest necklace was $2,000 on the website. She insisted I should spend the bonus on a wedding gift for her friend. I shut her down and told her it's my bonus, and she really can't expect me to buy her friend something this expensive. I don't think wedding gifts even exceed $100. She began fighting with me, saying I buy lunch out of the house and I have stupid hobbies that cost a lot of money, so why can't she spend some money on buying her friend a necklace? I do spend a bit on my hobbies, and I have 2 cars, but I also work my butt off, and her friend can definitely pay for it herself. She's marrying a doctor, and they already have a house, whereas we are still renting. I told her she's being insane, and she insists we sit down and tally up everything I spent on myself in the last year, and if it's higher than $2,000, I should pay for the necklace. I think it's ridiculous to compare the two, and I'm refusing to let her buy her friend a ridiculously expensive gift. She insists her friend has spent a lot on her, and I also have saved money because her friend pays for meals and activities whenever they hang out, so she doesn't have to spend our money. I get that the lopsided relationship isn't the best, but then she should refuse to do anything that costs too much and let her friend decide if she wants to just hang out without doing something that costs money. She refuses to talk to me now, and I'm wondering if I'm the jerk here. You're the jerk for what sounds like an uneven distribution of money and/or input on how it's spent. When the spouse is a stay-at-home, the breadwinner can't lay total claim to income, my money versus our money. Supporting your stay-at-home spouse requires more than just ensuring their bare necessities are covered while you spend unilaterally on expensive hobbies and multiple vehicles. then complain about renting instead of owning your home. Your wife has a valid reason to question your cumulative fun money expenses. If you're legitimately concerned about whether you're the jerk, you should oblige her and tally up everything you've spent this year on yourself. You may find that she's right. You spend big on you and she gets scraps. Some would consider that financial mistreatment when factoring in the power dynamic play. As the breadwinner, you hold all the leverage. Not the jerk. She's out of her mind to even consider asking you something like that, and so are all of these commenters. I was a stay-at-home mom myself for many years. I know how hard my husband worked to provide for us, and I never would have expected anything like this from him. What is wrong with you people? Being a stay-at-home parent means not having to work, getting to stay home and be a mother. You can't do that without a partner who works hard to provide for you, and you show him your gratitude by expecting him to buy your friends something this expensive? Just insane. It's no wonder young people aren't getting married anymore. What's the point when this is the insanity that you'll be subjected to? Your wife feels guilty for always relying on the friend, and let's be honest, the friend has probably paid more than $2,000 on your wife. To maintain a healthy relationship, your wife feels it's fair to repay the friend with an equally valued gift. It's not about how much money the friend has, it's how much your wife values the relationship. Unless you're in financial hardship, all you're telling your wife is that her friendships don't matter. In the end, it's your decision on how to spend the money, but your wife will always remember that you have financial control. This is why I don't recommend being a stay-at-home mom. Imagine having to beg someone for money. Have you looked at the cost of childcare, housekeeping, personal chef, chauffeur, and hooking up with you? Your money? This is a prime example of why I learned my lesson early that I need to stay in the workforce. You're the jerk. Tell your wife to get back to work because she's gonna need the skills for the day she dumps you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for leaving my husband after years of putting his friends and family above me? I, 31 female, married Evan, 34 male, 5 years ago. We've been together for about 8 years. For the first couple of years, I honestly thought I'd hit the jackpot. He was attentive, thoughtful, and supportive, or so I thought. But as time went on, he slowly became more and more absent, putting his friends and family before me in every way possible. Background: Evan has this group of friends he's known since high school. They hang out constantly, and he's made it clear that they came first, even when it interfered with our life together. We'd have plans, and he'd cancel last minute because they needed him for some urgent video game session or to help out. I didn't think much of it at first, but it got to the point where I realized I was always taking the back seat. Then there's his mom, who's difficult to put it lightly. She's never liked me, and Evan has never defended me or put up any boundaries. When she told me I wasn't good enough for her son at our engagement party, he laughed it off. At our wedding, she accidentally got into a fight with me over a small detail about our ceremony and has constantly undermined me since then. The final straw. I'm currently 6 months pregnant with our first. Recently, Evan sat me down to tell me he's not sure he's ready for the responsibility of a baby. When I told him it was a little late for second thoughts, he got defensive, saying he wasn't convinced this was the right time and that I was putting too much pressure on him. He mentioned he had talked it over with his friends, and they all agreed he was just being honest. That's when I realized that in his mind, their opinion mattered more than his family, more than us. The last straw came a week ago. I had a small health scare and he didn't even show up because he was busy with his friends. That night, I realized I couldn't rely on him, and I didn't want my kid growing up in an environment where their father wasn't present and prioritized everyone else over them. So I packed my bags and left. I'm staying with a friend for now, and I've made arrangements to file for divorce. I'm ready to build a life on my own for me and my baby, even if it really hurts. You deserve a partner, not a man-child who still prioritizes his friends over his family. Good for you for putting yourself and your baby first. Am I the jerk for walking out on a blind date my friend set up 2 weeks after my husband passed? I, 23 female, lost my husband, who was 25, weeks ago in an accident. He was the love of my life, and I'm still not used to waking up without him every day. We had big plans for our future, and it all came crashing down in a heartbeat. We met on his uncle's farm. He was a farmhand, and it was love at first sight for me. I'm also 4 months pregnant, but I haven't told anyone. I was planning on telling my friend when I was feeling better. My best friend Lay, who's 24, has been my shoulder to cry on during this time. She helped me with his funeral and anything else I needed, as I'm no contact with my biological family, but that's a story for another time. She's currently dating Barry, who's 24. They usually hang out in a trio with Liam, who's also 24. When I first met Liam, he tried to hit on me. He tried everything, as in he would try and compare himself with my husband, say weird things like our kids would be cuter if we had him together instead of with my husband. He's also made weird comments like I need a city boy and would motion to himself when I'm a country girl through and through. I typically would shut him down or ignore him, but I would always get dirty looks from Barry. Skip to Sunday night. I got a message from Lay begging me to come to dinner with her because she wanted to treat me as I had been through a lot in the past couple of weeks, feeling not so good about myself, so I decided to go. When I arrived, she wasn't there, so I texted her asking how long she would be, and she told me about 5 minutes. She's just running late and she's right around the corner. So I sat down and ordered a drink. 5 minutes passes and she's still not there, so I gave her the benefit of the doubt and I waited another 5 minutes. When I'm about to call her, Liam comes rushing over and gives his apologies for being late. I asked him what he was doing here because I was waiting for Lay, and it was a 2-chair table. He smiles at me and grabs my hand. He says, "Oh, I asked Lay to set us up now that your husband isn't a problem. We can finally get to know each other now." I stood up and told him that I wasn't interested and I certainly don't care anything about getting to know him and that I just lost my husband. This man stands up and says, "I know you're being overly emotional right now, so I'll forgive you if you sit down with me. I'm not saying we have to hook up or anything." I was disgusted and I shoved past him and I went home as fast as I could. When I did get home, Lay messaged me about how dinner was with a smirk emoji. I called her and when she answered, I didn't let her get a word in. I yelled at her and asked her how she had the audacity to do something like this weeks after I lost my husband, when she was the one to help hold me together this whole time. I asked her what game was she playing, and that the only reason I wanted to meet her tonight was to tell her that I'm pregnant. I just hung up on her and texted her saying I don't want to be contacted by her for the time being. Last night, Barry came to my house and asked to talk. I said no, and if he didn't leave, I'd call the police. He told me that I broke Lay's heart and that I deeply hurt Liam, when now is an even better time to get to know Liam because he could raise my kid with me. I opened the door, which Barry took as I wanted to talk, so I hit him with my shoe and chased him to his car screaming. I'm actually embarrassed I did that part. All day today, I'm being flooded with messages from friends and the trio themselves, shaming me for pushing the people who care about me the most away and that they don't even recognize the person I've become. What hurts me the most is that if my husband were here, he would know exactly what to do and he'd be able to fix this. I just feel numb now. I have a therapy appointment tomorrow, but I'm thinking of calling my husband's mom even though we've barely spoken since the funeral. Any advice is appreciated. Very weird and inappropriate people you have as so-called friends. Go no contact with them. Just you. Call your mother-in-law. She'll be thrilled about the baby. That's your support system. And join a grief therapy group if there's one local to you. It's okay to be numb. It's normal to be numb when life cracks you upside the head this hard. OP. Thank you. I just feel so wrecked at the minute, and I've joined a grief group in the city. I'm trying to grip enough courage to actually go. My boyfriend is upset that I'd consider breaking my vegetarianism during a week-long trip to Japan. I, 34 female, have been vegetarian for about 4 years. My boyfriend, who's 34, is a meat lover. He's an excellent cook and he loves steak and other types of meat. He's never asked me to start eating meat. I've never asked him to stop eating it. I don't care what he eats. It's 100% his and everyone else's choice. I don't talk about being vegetarian, I don't promote it, and I try to figure out my own food if I need to do so I don't inconvenience others. Sometimes it's hard to find a restaurant with vegetarian choices besides a side salad, so I'll do the legwork to find a restaurant everyone will like. My choice to be vegetarian hasn't seemed to be an issue or cause any big inconvenience. But maybe I'm wrong. When I went on vacation with my boyfriend's family for a week, his mom revised her risotto recipe to use veggie broth instead of chicken broth so I could eat it. I didn't ask. I think my boyfriend suggested it to her. I was really appreciative. When my boyfriend and I went on vacation for a week, we both looked up restaurants that would have vegetarian options for me. We mostly ate at seafood places because of where we were vacationing, and I managed to find a veggie burger or something like that at most places. I have a work trip to Japan coming up soon. I told my boyfriend I was considering eating meat during that week so I can fully experience the culture and food. That means sushi, steak, ramen, things like that. I'm not sure if I can actually get myself to eat meat during the trip because I think I'll feel guilty about it. My choice to be vegetarian is because I feel bad for how animals are raised, treated, and farmed. I miss sushi and steak the most, but again, I abstain. My boyfriend is upset that I would consider breaking vegetarianism for this week-long trip, but I wouldn't consider breaking vegetarianism to have a steak with him. It makes him feel like he's not worth it. It makes him feel like the trip and the coworkers I'm going on the trip with are more important than he is. I know he bonds over sharing food with people. He likes to cook for other people, and he's never been able to cook a steak for me, and we've never been able to share a steak dinner together. We've gone to steakhouses before, but I just eat whatever else they have. It's not the same as us both enjoying a steak. He also said that all the effort to accommodate me being vegetarian seems like a waste now. His mom going out of her way to make the risotto without chicken broth, looking up restaurants where I can eat something besides a salad, him cooking stir-fry or other dishes and leaving the meat separate or on the flat-top grill. He was to the point of tears over us not being able to eat steak together. I understand it would make him feel bad that I'd consider eating meat on the trip, but I haven't offered to eat a steak with him. I feel terrible for making him feel this way and making him feel less important or less worthy. I apologized for this and apologized for making him feel that way. I told him that's not it. It's not that he's not worthy, that this trip is probably once in a lifetime, and I'm afraid that if I have steak here at home with him, I'm concerned it'll become a slippery slope. I told him I don't want to stop being vegetarian. How do I navigate this? I hired my mother to house sit and dog sit for a week, and I returned to my house in shambles. Last week, my wife and I traveled to a music festival for about 5 to 6 days. I hired my mom, she needed the money, I needed a dog sitter, to take care of things while we were away for an agreed upon price. We cleaned the house prior to leaving, left her with strict instructions for what to do with our Great Dane, stocked the fridge, wrote the Wi-Fi and desktop passwords down for her, and prepaid her so she'd have some money. Fast forward to yesterday, we arrived to find lots of things had been done to our home, and it sent me into a fit. My wife and I are 30-somethings who just bought our very first house together, and it was bought, remodeled, and to our likings. The list is as follows. Every wall in the house had been painted with a color that did not match our normal paint scheme. The job was also incomplete and patchy in most areas. The previous paint was totally fine and only 7 months old. Missing electrical outlet covers, still don't know why. Over 100 cigarette butts in my rose-potted plant out front. Items missing and moved. Pictures hung and holes in the walls. We did not intend on hanging anything yet until we decided on what we wanted to hang. A shop light was ran over the kitchen table and tacked to the wall. 6-foot ladder laid on vinyl records, destroying 3 of them in the process. Spare house key made by my mom's boyfriend. Now I feel like I must change my locks. Indoor dog bed thrown in the mud. Duct tape found over the motion detectors and Ring doorbell. Not to mention the whole reason I needed her in the first place, the dog. He'd been left out back, seemingly the entire time. He sleeps indoors and comes in frequently for heat breaks. Barely fed, and his dog bed is caked in mud and rain, and I feel it is necessary to toss it in the garbage now. Naturally, I lost my head and my cool. I immediately started yelling about the fact that this is not their home. It was not okay for them to treat our home like it was theirs, doing whatever flight or fancy entered their brains. I almost suspect they could have been on something. That's the only thing I can rationalize their thought processes with. The entire time, my mother refused to accept responsibility for their actions, began to cry, and called me ungrateful. I feel like I'm being gaslit by my own mother for being upset. Our relationship is now tarnished even further than it was, and my wife doesn't want her back here. The scenario has played in my mind countless times, and I feel completely awful about yelling at her, but it's the complete lack of accepting responsibility on her part that has me fuming, on top of acting like nothing was even amiss. Am I the jerk here, or was I justified in my right to be upset? Update. Have completely ghosted my mom and blocked her cell phone number. I've changed the locks and began the process of fixing my home out of pocket. My dog is back to his chipper self and is scheduled for a vet visit tomorrow. I really appreciate everyone's support just pouring over this post. I will reply as much as possible. Thanks. Not the jerk. I'd press charges. You can sue her, but unless she has money or assets of some kind, you probably won't get much. OP. Thought about it, couldn't bring myself to sue my mother. And even if I could, the situation is, as you'd imagine. She's broke with no assets other than a car. Yeah, I figured. May still be a good idea to press charges. Maybe talk to your homeowner's insurance and see if you have any way to recoup some money from damages. Always worth a shot. Not the jerk, but this is really bad. Like, call the police bad. I wonder, was it a complete surprise to you that your mom acted like this? She has no relevant history? Because in that case, I would want mom evaluated for neurological problems. If not, if you should have suspected this might happen, you owe your partner an enormous apology and you must swear that finally the blinders are off and you are no longer in denial. Get your locks changed pronto. Time to tell mom she cannot be part of your life as long as she isn't sober. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you sue your mom or not? Please let us know. Suing would be an understatement for what I would do. I'm refusing to cook dinner for my family because my mom keeps buying the wrong ingredients. Okay, so to start off, I'm 24, female, and I live at home with my parents. I have a job and pay rent. I just can't feasibly afford an apartment where I currently live by myself with my current job. On to the issue at hand. My mother for years will buy the wrong or healthier version of something that we need for cooking or eating. Example, sugar-free Nesquik, margarine instead of butter, fat-free versions of anything that don't need to be fat-free. I have one heck of an Alfredo sauce recipe. It's delicious and I love it. Is it healthy? No, not in the slightest, but not everything needs to be healthy, especially when none of us in the household are unhealthy or overweight. Mom wanted me to make it for dinner and asked what I would need to make it, so I told her. I would need 2 cups of heavy cream, a bag of shredded Parmesan cheese, a stick of butter, flour, spices, and pasta water. All she needed to buy was heavy cream and a bag of shredded Parmesan cheese and some butter. Everything else we already had. I told her this recipe doesn't work or taste right without these specific things and not to substitute anything or I wouldn't be making dinner. What does she come home with? A gallon of 2% milk and a container of reduced fat grated Parmesan cheese, the kind you would sprinkle on spaghetti, and a tub of Smart Balance butter spread. None of these things were what I needed to make dinner with. I asked if the store was just out of everything and she told me no, but these will work better. I've tried to make this with half and half and grated Parmesan cheese before. It's not a fraction as scrum-diddly-icious compared to when it's made with heavy cream and shredded cheese. I told her that I needed everything that I said with no substitutions and that I wouldn't be making it, and she flipped. She said she didn't have anything else to make for dinner and that she doesn't know how to make it like I do. Yet, she couldn't follow simple instructions. Before any of you say, "Why didn't you go to the store?" I didn't go because she said she would get everything and promised to not substitute anything and just get what I asked for. I didn't care the brand or anything she got. It could be the store brand stuff for all I care. I just needed heavy cream, butter, and a bag of shredded Parmesan cheese. She's now calling me ungrateful and uncooperative, along with a multitude of other things that imply that I'm stupid and have something wrong with me, and threatening to kick me out if I don't make dinner. So, am I the jerk for not making dinner because my mom bought the wrong ingredients? Not the jerk. First off, also, margarine is garbage for you. It's artificial crap, and you're far better off ingesting things that your body can actually process, just in moderation if it's really rich. Seriously though, what's up with your mom's logic? When I make it, it doesn't taste good. That would be because you don't make it the right way. Her mother is the kind of person who leaves those obnoxious comments under online recipes. I made this and it was horrible. I swapped out the cream for skim milk, the butter for margarine, and used nutritional yeast instead of Parmesan. It was watery and tasted like feet. 0 stars. Not the jerk. There's a power struggle going on here. If your mom wants a low-fat, healthy meal, then y'all can cook broccoli with butter to taste and broiled fish. Trying to make a low-fat Alfredo is doomed to taste disaster. These comments are ridiculous. OP says she is paying rent, but that amount is very clearly under market value because she says she can't afford an apartment on her own. OP's mother probably makes dinner every night and asked OP to make dinner for once. OP expects her mother to pay for ingredients for that meal, and then OP refuses to make the meal because the ingredients are wrong. OP is 24 years old, and you guys are acting like she's 16. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her mom? Please let us know. Never mess with someone's Alfredo. Am I the jerk for shutting down game nights with my boyfriend and his friends since they expect us to just sit around watching them play video games? My boyfriend and his friends like to play video games together. I have little to no interest in video games. The issue is that for some reason, he and his friends think that them playing video games is the most interesting thing in the world. And you know how guys who are into sports will have their girlfriends come watch their games? He and his friends kind of expect us, the women, to do the same. I'll admit that we tried it once. It was boring and a huge waste of time. None of us had any interest in just sitting there watching them play games. But for some reason, the guys expected that somehow this counted as a group hangout and thought it was a great time. They started to make plans to do it again, and I stepped in and said, "Hey, you guys can play, but we aren't going to just sit around watching you play video games." They didn't get why we didn't like it, because they like sitting around and watching people play games and are always watching streamers play. I said if we're going to hang out as a group, we all need to be doing stuff together, interacting. They argued back that we could always join them playing the games, and I just said that I know I have no interest in that, and a few of the other women chimed in to say so too. Well, the guys are upset with me now because to them I ruined game night, which to them was something that everyone could enjoy. I don't get why they can't just play games together without dragging bored girlfriends along for the ride. My instinct is that some of them were using it as a way to pretend they were spending time with their girlfriends so they don't get pegged as being bad boyfriends. Edit. I figured I'd answer some questions before I go. 1. He plays with these friends multiple times per week already. It's not about not wanting him to game. His hobbies are his hobbies, and he's not some loser who doesn't wash himself. I have no issue with him playing. They're also not his only friends. 2. No, the women don't know each other outside of this. These are not friends in the making. This isn't some cutesy little sitcom. We're not trying to make a friend group out of this. 3. I don't like playing board games, and something like Dungeons & Dragons is of no interest to me. This applied to most of the other women as well, so please stop with the recommendations. Also, what is everyone's obsession with wine? Every other comment keeps saying that we should get wine. Why? Stop. Not the jerk. That sounds boring. Is there another room of the house or one of the other ladies' houses where you can hang out and do whatever you want to do? Pamper evening, board games, etc.? Or just have a girls' night out while they do their games night in? Yeah, how is this not the obvious solution? My group has been doing that since our wives were our girlfriends. If the girls don't want a game and the boys are being boring, the girls should make their own plans, unless maybe the girls don't know or like each other. OP. No, we don't know each other. The only thing we have in common is that our boyfriends are friends. I'm pretty sure the boyfriends all have this weird idea that things like Friends and How I Met Your Mother are like real life, and that everyone just wants to hang out in groups just because you're dating one of the guys or something. You absolutely nailed it. The guys are thinking that if everyone is in the same room, it's a group activity and thus spending time together. It's not. It's them selfishly gaming while their partners stare at a screen. Get better boyfriends. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know.
Gamers, rise up. We will not stand to be treated this way any longer. And quit talking about Dungeons & Dragons like that, bruh. That's my game, though.
Warehouse Club doesn't price match their own sales flyer, or so they say. Back in mid-October 2019, I purchased a new Microsoft Surface Pro 7 from Warehouse Club, known for great food samples. Awesome computer, still works just as great to this day. When the sales flyer came out for November, my new computer was going to be on sale for $200 off the purchase price. Sweet, I've still got the receipt. I'll just get $200 back. I go into customer service with my receipt and the flyer. The customer service rep looks at them, looks it up in the computer, and says she can't do it. I'm a little surprised. I've had the computer for 2 weeks. The rep asks her manager to come over, who explains to me that due to fraud issues they've had, they cannot price match their flyer. The manager states that he can process a return for the item. I tell him that I really don't want to return the item because 1, all my personal info is now stored on it, and 2, it's a waste for the company to have to take back my used computer and sell me a new one at a lower price. I explain this to the manager, but tell him for $200, I'm not going to just let this go without a resolution. He reiterates, I can process a return for a laptop. He really emphasized the A and did not say your. The light bulb goes off. I look at my receipt and realize that they do not track serial numbers with purchases. I thank the manager for his time and walk inside the store. I get an exact duplicate of my new computer and purchase it for $200 less than what I originally paid. I then take the new unwrapped computer and get back in the return line. I get a different rep altogether and tell her I'd like to return this laptop. I hand her the unit I just purchased with my receipt for the more expensive computer. She looks it up and realizes that I've bought 2 of the computers, including one just minutes before. She calls over the manager, who looks at me, nods, smiles, and processes the return for the higher priced computer. I got a refund for the more expensive price, didn't have to turn in my computer with personal information, and because I never opened the new one, the company didn't get done out of a new computer and was able to put it right back into their new stick. Wait, what? That would absolutely not fly in New Zealand. 1. You bought it before the special. You don't get refunded the difference because there's a special afterwards. 2. There was no fault with the product. There is no return for change of mind. Honestly, that was really rude of you. I personally don't think you should have been allowed to do this. Why? Because they bought it before it was on sale. If they wanted it on sale, they should have just waited until it was on sale. Who cares? Who is it hurting? So, to circumvent a company policy about fraud, the manager asked you to commit fraud. It's not fraud. OP had a receipt saying they can return this item within this time frame for this amount. OP got back the amount paid, and the store got back the item sold. It's not like OP bought a 256GB version and handed them back a 128GB version. Financially and stock-wise, the company is no better or worse off than if OP just never made the purchase. Companies would rather customers do what OP did, hence the manager having no objections, rather than refusing to shop there in the future because they feel burned that they spend $900 for something that was $700 a week later, and they're out $200 difference. While I'm glad you got $200 back, this isn't how price match works. You bought something before the current sale was active. Once active, you were upset and tried to get the money back. That's a Karen move. But again, glad you got your money back. I tried something like this before, and the manager went off on me, threatened to call the cops, and just raised heck. The issue was at a Walmart where I bought a TV, tossed the box and receipt, and then realized there was a line of dead pixels down the left side. I went to return it and was told I can't return it without a box or the receipt. I bought another one of the same, moved one TV to the other box, and went to return both, and the same manager just flipped out about it. Eventually, he just caved and processed both returns, but you'd think I was forcing him to pay me from his wallet for those TVs. Called corporate about his tantrum, and after that, I haven't seen him around. My friend/colleague found a TV discarded on the road. He's definitely that guy, but he's really talented and we work well together. He plugged the TV in and it was having some issues. Not being the type that gives up easily, he went to Best Buy and bought the same TV in box, brought it home, steamed off the serial number, and put his broken TV in the box. Saved about $3,000. Well, what do you think? Is anybody doing anything wrong here or not? Please let us know.
Humans, bruh. Humans.
Am I the jerk for telling my always late friends an earlier time so we'd be on time? So I, 32 female, have been friends with this group of people who are 30, 31, and 32 female since high school. I love them all, but when we plan something, they are always consecutively late. Every time, and it drives me nuts. One year, they almost made us miss our flight home, and they always say they forgot the time or they thought they had more and just goofed around. It has gotten to the point where I will meet them because I refuse to get caught up in the drama. Last year, I left on my own accord to the airport because they were all passed out and would not wake up. They missed checkout and had to pay for an extra day. Then they barely made it to the airport in time for their flights. Apparently, I'm pushy for ensuring we leave at a certain time, considering traffic, possible accidents or delays, and even looking up shortcuts in case. Throughout the years, sharing a ride with them has almost made me late to work before. Lesson learned, so now I take an extra day off just in case. Our vacations themselves are fun and easygoing. So this vacation was pretty smooth up until the end. We all decided to choose a night where we would plan all of the events. Mine was Friday. It was a fairly relaxing day. I scheduled a pedicure for 9:30 a.m. and I told them it was at 8:45. They showed up at 9:15 and were surprised we got in so quickly. I reserved a table for us at lunch at 1 p.m. I told them it was 12:30. They arrived at 12:52 with the same reaction. That night, I had reserved us a table at this really nice dining establishment at 7:30. I told them for 6:45. They arrived at 7:10. It was a great night. Sunday, when we were going home, I said my goodbyes, checked out of my hotel room, and took my separate Uber to the airport for my 2 p.m. flight home. I got home around 8 and turned on my phone to the equivalent of an assault on my group chat. Apparently, they had left late again and one of them missed their flight and they were arguing about it. I told my roomie what was going on and what I did, and she said that was rude of me to manipulate their time like that. She knows one of the girls and told her what I did, and now all of the girls are mad at me. My Friday scheduling had absolutely nothing to do with one missing their flight. Am I the jerk? If I were you, I would say I'm too grown for this and drop each and every one of them. They seem exhausting to be around. Not the jerk. OP. It might be the last trip for a long while. We're all getting up there in age. One of the girls wants to try and have a baby here soon. The other is planning a wedding and will probably get pregnant shortly after, and the other is a workaholic like myself. Imagine your spouse's mom is demanding that you quit your job and stay home to raise your baby. That's exactly what happens in our next story. It just popped up on your screen. Give it a tap, come have a listen. You won't believe what happens next.